The Texas coast is special to me, and my family has made countless memories there. This spring, it's time for you to do the same in Port Aransas. It's a place where family traditions naturally unfold, and you'll find beauty in the island views while taking time to relax between adventures. Just one visit, and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Plan your visit to Houston's beach at visitportaransas.com. Today on CityCast Houston, it's Friday, so we're breaking down the biggest stories of the week that impacted us here in H-Town with Lucio Vasquez, breaking news reporter at the Texas Newsroom. It's Friday, April 18th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Lucio, what's up? Good morning. I know it's been a busy week for you. You've been covering everything that's happening with school vouchers, so I hope you've gotten some rest, but I want to jump right into this because your reporting has been outstanding. What is the latest right now with school vouchers?
Well, first off, I want to, say thank you. You're very kind words. Appreciate it. And yes, I am very tired. But I do want to say that, the whole team of us at the Texas Newsroom have been covering the school vouchers thing. So this fatigue is definitely spread amongst the team.
Oh, yeah.
But, the main news, the Texas House approved the school voucher plan, as well as a $7.7 billion school funding bill. These are arguably the two most watched bills of this current legislative session. And the school voucher plan is something that, Governor Greg Abbott himself has pushed for years now. He even made it a top priority for the legislative session this year. And so, these are, again, preliminary approvals, right? But given the fact that the second reading, so I guess just to break down how the legislative session works real quick, a bill is proposed that gets sent to a committee. If it passes the committee, it gets sent to the chamber floor. And then if the chamber floor, whether it be the Senate or the House, they approve, it gets sent to the other chamber. And then, vice versa, the same process happens, and then it gets sent to the governor for approval.
Yeah, just watching from the outside, this seemed like a really, really important reading because Governor Abbott had to call in President Donald Trump, which is, this is just my opinion, kind of weird because on the federal level, everybody's been like, hey, we want less federal involvement with state politics. And here we are having President Trump involved in state politics. So, okay, that's a whole different tangent. But they had to pull out all the big guns, right? And, they rallied around President Trump and Governor Abbott. And it looked like there was a fighting chance for the Democrats and a couple of Republicans to fight this bill and not have school vouchers pass right now. The Democrats are actually saying that, hey, we are going to just block every amendment from here on out if we don't take this to the voters. They really wanted this in front of all Texans, like, let's vote on this in November, but that didn't work. I mean, for the most part, this is going to pass now, and this is going to become a reality for Texans.
I would say so. Again, like you mentioned, the amendments. I mean, there was a countless amount of amendments. I mean, gosh, last I saw, it was maybe like up to 68 amendments, which is it's pretty ridiculous, the number of amendments and the length of debate that happened. But again, it's a really important issue, right? This is an issue that, again, Abbott himself has pushed for years. Back in 2023, this was another point of contention during that legislative session. It didn't end up passing due to some rural House Republicans and Democrats who voted together against the bill. But since then, Abbott has successfully backed pro-voucher candidates in last year's Republican primaries, so that shifted the votes in favor of the bill.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. And this is where it gets kind of frustrating for me that Texans clearly did not want this, right? And Governor Abbott basically primaried everyone who was against it from the Republican side, and now it passes with flying colors. All right, this is going to become a reality again. All right, so basically, for those of you who don't know what school vouchers are, I am going to link to a full episode about it that we've done earlier in the year. So take a listen to that. But in one sentence, here's what we're doing, okay? We're taking public tax dollars, $1 billion right now. This is going to go up as the program advances and more years are added, more students are added. But we're taking $1 billion and giving students up to $12,500 if you have a disability and $10,000 if you are a student just going to a private school. And you're getting these vouchers that will help you pay for a private school education. All right. This is where it gets kind of weird, is that like how many Texans will benefit from this, right? It could be up to 100,000, right? And some will be in quote unquote lower income households. Some are going to be students with disabilities, and the rest of the pool is going to be students who are already in the private school education system, right? So their families will get assistance, something that they might not need because they're already in the private school system again. So that's what it is. And there's been a lot of controversy about this. There's been a lot of fight from the Democrats. One thing that did come out of this big midweek session, there's also going to be a lot of money now allocated for public schools. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah. So basically, this is, I believe, the first increase to public school funding in several years now. It's $7.7 billion, designating $3 billion to teacher pay raises and $1.5 billion to additional funds for special education funding as well. And so, basically, these two bills. This is House Bill 2, specifically talking about the finance aspect of it, and Senate Bill 2, talking about the school vouchers. They were kind of pitched hand in hand. A Texas two-step is what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that one would not work without the other. House Speaker Dustin Burrows of Lubbock, he's a Republican from Lubbock. He, before the session started Wednesday morning, had a press conference and basically said what I just said, right? That these two bills work hand in hand and that they wouldn't work without each other. And he was very confident that they would both pass, which, and ended up becoming a reality.
Yeah, Democrats were not happy with the amount of money in that second portion of the bill, right? The almost $8 billion, as you mentioned. That's going to increase the per student funding by about $395, but it hasn't increased since 2019. And when you take into account inflation, the deficits that a lot of school districts around Texas are facing, especially here in the Houston area, this just won't be enough to cover that gap, but it is something. And it was something that basically was held hostage, that if you pass school vouchers, then you will get this as well. So next steps now, what is up? There's still some gaps also in the school vouchers, right? Like between the House and the Senate. So are they just going to discuss this next before making
Mhm.
things official?
Yeah, so House Bill 2 still needs to be approved by the Texas Senate. So if and when House Bill 2, the school finance bill, is passed by the House, that'll be sent over to the Senate, and then it'll, be considered just like any other bill. Notably, that bill on second reading passed, I believe, 144 to 4. And so a
Mhm.
lot more drastic of a gap, right? So that
Yeah.
is, I think, more than likely going to pass and head over to the Senate. Whereas school vouchers, that bill was, obviously a little more contentious. I mean, the House Bill 2, the finance bill, it was about 3 hours of debate. School vouchers, I think, was 4 times as long, right?
Yeah.
And after that, a long, long, long night, that passed 85 to 63. So when Senate Bill 2 is passed, it'll then be sent to basically a conference committee where both chambers will sort out any differences between their versions of the bill.
Okay.
Just to explain that part again, this can get a little in the weeds for sure, but I want to make it
Yeah.
as accessible as possible. I mentioned earlier that Senate Bill 2 was passed by the Senate. Then the House got its hands on the bill and amended the bill itself. So these are two versions of the same bill, right, with tweaks. The House's version of this bill basically allowed it for the program to prioritize students from low income households or students with disabilities ahead of higher income brackets. It's basically a tier system. And so these are one of the changes that will likely need to be ironed out once, if and when this bill passes.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that, and you can follow Lucio's coverage as well with the Texas Newsroom. I'm linking his profile to all of his stories, so please check those out. And of course, follow Lucio on social media as well, and he's going to be posting the latest. All right, I want to get to my big story of the week, Lucio, and it's about the city's budget deficit. And look, going into this week, it was at about $300 million. And now it's going to be about $220 million because Mayor John Whitmire announced this week that the city negotiated a deal with the plaintiffs in that lawsuit over the streets and drainage project that didn't come to fruition. The city didn't spend the money. There was a big lawsuit. They settled that it would be about $100 million going back into these projects. And we initially thought that the $100 million is going to have to be spent all at once in the upcoming year. But now the city has worked out basically a payment plan, and it's going to lower the deficit now to about $220 million. And shout out to Shannon Ryan of ABC 13, friend of the show. She had it first. So this is a good thing in that the budget deficit isn't as big, but it's still very big, Lucio. $220 million is not a small number.
Yeah, I can't even comprehend having, like, just seeing that much money in person, it's a lot. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a win is a win, right? But still, at the very least, 250, you said, right?
220.
220. Okay, so good golly, 30 million.
You just saved 30 million for the city.
Wow, look at that. You're welcome. But yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Just, I mean, seeing this progress over the last few years, from the Turner administration, now the Whitmire administration, right? It's pretty troubling as a citizen of the city, right? So, I mean, seeing this money go towards the city again and reducing that deficit is, I think, overall a good thing to be a citizen here in Houston.
Yeah, still a good thing, but still a lot of questions up in the air, right? Like, how do you close this $220 million budget deficit? Is it going to be, raising fees for trash pickup? Is it going to be additional taxes? Is it, cutting more spending? Is it eliminating more jobs, hiring freeze? Those things are already happening, but are there more on the way? And, another layer to this, the police officers, they want a raise and they are trying to redo their contract. And the union's working with the city right now. So there are so many different layers. And this is by far the biggest thing right now that Mayor Whitmire has to figure out. And, you look at it, City Controller Chris Hollins isn't just going to sit. He's the guy who's working on the city's budget and will also certify the new fiscal year budget as well, which is coming up this summer. He's not sitting back and just going, all right, we're just going to roll with this. No, like, he wants answers before he certifies the new budget. So there's about to be a lot of tension up in the air at City Council.
Yeah, I do remember, I believe it was last year, or I can't quite remember, but I think, and I can't even remember the how it came up, but there was this proposed idea that they increase I believe the fees associated with parking around the city, or at least
around downtown. They're going to extend the hours, I think.
Yeah. And I remember the extreme backlash against that. Whereas, like, obviously if you're strapped for cash, that could be a viable option. But as a citizen of the city, after 6 o'clock, I would love to have free parking. On Sunday, I would love to have free parking, right? And so it's like striking that balance between, like, making a smart move financially for the city while also not, I guess, just agitating the citizens in that city, right? Yeah. And so either way, the tension's, I think, going to be felt outside of City Hall as well.
Especially if it's a new trash fee. Houston's the only major city that doesn't incorporate a tax fee for residents, right? So that's going to be tension felt, and that will be something to watch out for as well.
Yeah, that tension might hit our wallets, unfortunately, maybe.
Hey parents, I just took both of my daughters to Momentum Indoor Climbing, and at first they were a little overwhelmed with the massive rock climbing walls, but once they got geared up and started climbing, they went from nervous wrecks to confidently scaling walls in a matter of minutes. Heck, my 10-year-old almost beat me in a race, while my toddlers just enjoyed trying. And check this out, your kids can do the same this summer at Momentum's summer camps in Katy and at Sawyer Yards. Momentum offers weekly summer camps for ages 4 to 16 years old. From beginners to experienced climbers, there's something for everyone at Momentum Climbing. Because in addition to rock climbing, the Momentum team has tons of other activities to keep your kids engaged. Plus, they have half-day or full-day options that fit your schedule. Save 10% on camp registration right now with code CityCast at checkout. Head to momentumclimbing.com/summercamps to sign up today because camps do fill up pretty fast.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new Next Gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic, clear, and well-organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city.
All right, Lucio, let's get to our most overlooked stories of the week. What do you got for me?
Yeah, so, as you may have heard over the last week or two, or it's probably been a longer process at this point, but there have been visa revocations for international students across the country. Here in Texas specifically, we have more than 250 people who've been affected by this sweep of revocations. So basically, for context, just in case you haven't heard, international students have been going to, our colleges in the country, in Texas universities specifically. They get a specific visa, a student visa, to come to the country and learn. And after the Trump administration took office and came into effect, there's obviously been a much more aggressive deportation push. And part of that deportation push has been basically aggressively affecting these international students, and at least one professor at the University of Houston as well, who had their legal status changed. And so again, I as of last week, I believe it was around 120 confirmed cases, and now we have, nearly double that amount. And there's no telling really how many people are going to be affected in the long run. Texas has a pretty sizable population of international students. I believe we're third in the country. I forget the two states ahead of us, but I believe the last time I checked, it was around 70,000, maybe even more international students going to our universities here in Texas. And I think the troubling part as well is that there's been a lack of transparency, a lack of information, right? We only know this information because universities themselves have confirmed, or maybe people who have been impacted have reached out to attorneys or spoken publicly about it.
Yeah.
The federal government hasn't said anything, and obviously we don't know personal information, at least to a certain extent, because it's a very sensitive topic, right? But there's a lot up in the air as to just how many people are going to be affected in the long run, and if there's any way to even push back against this.
Yeah, that's it. Like, they had no chance to make a case for themselves, to defend themselves. It was like, you're out. That's it. You talked about that professor at the University of Houston. He basically told his class that this is my last class because my visa is now revoked and I have to go back home and figure this out. Like, I have no idea what happened, but I need to figure this out. And I want to read this from the Texas Tribune. They had a, really important story about this. And in the story, I'm just going to read this, to get some clarification on like who is being targeted. In the story, they said neither university nor government officials have made it clear how students and the professors were chosen for removal, something that you just mentioned. However, the Department of Homeland Security released a statement earlier this week saying it would begin screening international students' social media for anti-Semitic content. DHS, Department of Homeland Security statement, cited two executive orders from President Donald Trump described by the White House as aiming to crack down on the explosion of anti-Semitism on our campuses and in our streets. And that's been one of the major layers to this story, is that are these students being kicked out for voicing their support or opinion for Palestine or Gaza? Is that the reason they're being kicked out, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a wrinkle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say there have been reports of people who at least they say they weren't a part of these protests, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you may remember last year, the conflict in Gaza, between Israel and Hamas, was definitely heating up, and on campuses throughout the country there were protests, there were demonstrations in support of Palestine. And a lot of these protests ended in arrests. There were encampments, I believe, at the University of Texas in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Similar encampments, I believe, were in Texas A&M. So we definitely saw a lot of these demonstrations in Texas universities. But at the same time, there are some people who are coming out now who have been affected by this wave of revocations who say that they weren't even part of that, right? I believe the Associated Press had confirmed at least one person said that they had a speeding ticket, and then they got flagged as having a criminal offense. And so,
Wow.
again, that Department of Homeland Security statement is probably the best piece of information we have as of right now to kind of discern what's exactly happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's telling the full story.
The University of Houston's chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine estimated that about 12 of their students and members were revoked. Their visa was revoked. So, we are getting more information from that. And you're right, like some of them we don't know. And it's just so frustrating as a Muslim man, right? Like, are we seeing stories of students who are Islamophobic? Are they being, kicked out? Right? Are their visas being revoked? And I haven't seen any. So it's very frustrating to see, and all these lives are being impacted, right? And foreign students, people have their own opinions about this, but I think the more talent you get into our country and our universities, and they learn here and hopefully stay here and add back to society, that's a good thing. But it seems like there's an attack, on these students, on undocumented people who live here as well. And this administration has made it clear that they feel a certain way about people who aren't quote unquote American.
I will say that kind of sentiment has been. I've seen that sentiment as well, among like some advocates who say this could be a slippery slope, right? Because you start with maybe international students who've been accused of a crime, right? But then where does it end, right? It could very quickly snowball into something that might be a little bit more insidious, according to these advocates, right? So yeah, it's also very blindsiding because again, you get this notice very suddenly that hey, you're going to have to leave the country, and some of these individuals say that they don't even have a criminal background. It can be a very scary time, and again, there's not a lot of information. I mean, Rice University, for instance, I mean, 1 in every 4 student there is an international student, and that university that they haven't confirmed anything. Right. They just have declined to comment. And so one can assume that due to the fact that their population of international students is so large, they must have felt some kind of impact. But as of right now, we just don't know.
And we'll also see, like, are these universities going to step up and fight for these students? That's going to be another thing to watch out for. I haven't seen many universities fighting for these students and pushing back. Maybe they're scared as well, right? Like, will federal funding be pulled? Because we've seen that threat happen to other universities in other states, Harvard being the big one from this administration. But here locally, I mean, you think about federal funding being pulled from universities, it could devastate a university.
Absolutely.
And it could really change the way they operate. So this is a really big thing. I know it's an overlooked story for us, but this could turn into a very, very big thing locally for universities and all of us that live here.
And, not to belabor it, but I mean, such a huge chunk of our student population is international. I would assume that if you just get rid of that population, there's going to be economic impacts, I mean, it could have ripples, and it's just not entirely sure what those ripples or how those ripples are going to reach, how far reaching they might be, but there definitely will be there.
All right, Lucy, I'm going to get to my most overlooked story, and this is going to be a tough one for me to talk about. But the Houston Landing announced this week that they will cease operation and stop publishing in mid-May. And this is very hard, again, to talk about because we've had so many of the reporters who have become friends of CityCast Houston on the show, and they've done just such incredible work. And, the Houston Landing, they are a nonprofit newsroom, and they announced that they had this $20 million in funding to initially launch in 2023. But we kind of saw the writing on the wall earlier this year when some of their funding wasn't renewed by some of their donors. And, we just got this weird feeling that maybe it's getting, close to the end here for the Houston Landing. But now it's official that the Houston Landing is going to close and stop publishing in mid-May. So this is tough because they've made such a big impact here in the city of Houston with their coverage, with all of their stories shining light on diverse communities, education, government. They just made a huge impact in such a short time, and they will be missed for sure.
Yeah, it's very surreal because as someone who loves Houston and has covered Houston for years in the past, it's you know more coverage is always a good thing. We have obviously several institutions here in Houston, but the introduction of the Landing was exciting. To see all the good work they were doing and pushing other publications, I think to meet that standard, right? It was always an exciting thing, and the people working there as well were always so lovely. I haven't had a chance to meet a lot of them, but the people I have met, always so nice, always so knowledgeable, accommodating, and even the folks who maybe didn't start out in Houston but moved here due to the job. I think they quickly became Houstonians.
Yeah.
I think they quickly saw what was so special about the city. And so, at least losing the Landing in its current iteration, it makes me sad. And, it's troubling, right? As a journalist to see, these certain things happen in, I guess, nonprofit media nowadays. It makes me a little nervous, right? Working as an NPR reporter, we can get into it as a whole episode, but there's definitely been a push against NPR and PBS and public media in general by the Trump administration to, cut funding and stuff like that. And so if that goes through, unfortunately, there may be more stories like this in the future.
Yeah, that's something that would impact so many citizens who depend on, stations and also places like the Houston Landing for really important coverage. And I did mention, this could be the end of this iteration, but there are some talks that the Texas Tribune might be bringing on some of the journalists to expand their local newsroom reach here in Houston. But we're not too clear right now. So that's something that is going to be sorted out here in the near future. So we're thinking about all of the journalists, all of the behind the scenes staff as well that are impacted by these layoffs. Y'all did some amazing stuff, and I can't wait to see what all of our friends are going to do next because they are going to continue doing some great things wherever they land.
Absolutely.
And now, two pigeons bemoaning the fact you can choose the TV you want with DirecTV.
So now they can pick out their favorite entertainment when they sign up and save money?
You mean if you like sports?
You can get a sports pack.
What about entertainment?
Entertainment pack.
It's like finding an old pizza with your favorite toppings, which for me would be pineapple and toenails.
Pineapple?
Pay for the TV you want, not the TV you don't. Genre pack starting at $34.99 a month. Visit DirecTV.com for more information. New residential customers only. Local channels vary by market. Services renew monthly unless you cancel online. Credit card required. Restrictions apply.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Lucio, let's get to your moment of joy. What made you happy this week?
Well, I I was lucky enough to produce a story that was a little bit unusual for my current beat. So I'm a breaking news reporter for the state of Texas, right? For the Texas Newsroom. And breaking news in Texas is depressing. It's it's not exactly you're not breaking happy news for the most part, right? But I was able to set aside time to work on a feature for NPR about the history of cascarones. These are basically confetti-filled eggs. And, we have Easter coming up, and obviously in the South, we have, you crack a cascarone over someone's head, confetti showers them, and it's like obnoxious, but also kind of fun, right? And I was lucky enough to work on a story looking at the history, or at least what is known of the history about cascarones, and kind of, looking into how they came into the U.S. in general. And it was a really nice time to talk with people about something that wasn't, again, incredibly depressing, but just like cracking eggs over someone's head, right?
Yeah, like it brings so much joy to people.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. And that's my moment of joy too. It's Easter weekend. I obviously don't celebrate being a Muslim, but I love this weekend because I love seeing all my friends who do celebrate, like the pictures, their egg hunts, and they're kind enough to invite us to egg hunts as well. So I'm going out there and getting some eggs too.
Oh, very nice. Are you going out with like kids, or is it mostly like, so what's the dynamic?
Oh, yeah. There's kids out there. And, I have a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old. So the 10-year-old does it on her own. I'm with the 2-year-old. I'm her spotter, but I know what the good eggs are. So I'm helping her out, but I'm really getting them for me.
Very nice, very nice. I used to egg hunt as a kid, but they used to put like dollar bills in there sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I was always like trying to figure out, like, okay, the heavier ones are definitely candy, but the lighter ones, that's where the monetary value is, right?
Yeah. I hope there's some dollar eggs out there. In this economy, I don't know.
We could use them. Maybe the Easter Bunny is, frugal this year. Who knows?
That's my moment of joy, is to just get out there and, be with my friends who are celebrating and, being part of their celebration. So I always appreciate that. And it's always a great time here in the city of Houston this weekend. So have fun out there. Weather hopefully holds up Sunday. I know it's going to be, storming, but I hope it's just we have enough sunlight to go do those egg hunts, because I get out there as well. All right. I'm trying to get me a candy egg. Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Lucio, thank you so much for joining us, man. Have a great weekend.
Absolutely. You too, man. Thanks.
That was Lucio Vasquez of the Texas Newsroom. You can check out his work with the link in our show notes, along with all of the stories we talked about today. Before the weekend hits, share this episode with 3 friends who need to know more about what's happening in our community. It really helps us grow the show. Also, drop us a rating and review, and please subscribe whether you're new here or a longtime listener. Need some plans for the weekend? Our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, has a 5-star list of fun things happening around H-Town. All you need to do is subscribe with the info in our show notes. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Natalie Rivera and Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editors this week were Natalia Aldana and Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos, with additional music courtesy of Rob McAllister, Wendy Marcini, and Abbas Premji from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. We'll be back on Monday to learn why a group of Houstonians want to recall Mayor Whitmire. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Testing 1, 2. I just want to make sure mine is still good. Let me just check the input.